Vikings had 110 yards through three quarters, which, the Eagles, or the Seahawks had more rushing yards than the Vikings did total yards. Cousins had 27 yards passing in the first half, which, that just floored me. That, the Seahawks have a good defense, but it's not a dominant defense that should be taking it to him like that. And Adam Thielen had 0 targets in the first half. So those were all things that stood out to me. And, I think the frustration is showing among the receivers as well. Stephon Diggs expressed frustration with, some of the down and distance situations that the Vikings were putting themselves in. And Thielen was caught on mic last night. I'll paraphrase it to keep it clean, but basically saying after a catch, it's been open all day. And I don't know if that was frustration with the play calling or frustration with where Cousins was going with the ball in those situations. But, clearly with Diggs and Thielen, you have two not only very talented, but highly competitive guys. And, what they say after the game is often, very muted for how their feelings really are. And I think that their frustration is starting to show in some of the things that, that they're saying on the field or that are caught by mics on the field and some of their actions on the field. So maybe this move with DiFilippo and going to Stefanski will kind of calm the waters now and give them renewed hope. But that's really what it's come down to is 3 games. What can you do here, guys?
Absolutely. So all week, Zimmer, not all week, really for a while now, Zimmer's been preaching, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And I think what we saw last night, because the Vikings started off the game running okay. Cook was getting 5-6 yards, whatever, which is about all you can expect against a good defense. It is a reminder, though, that in the modern NFL, you want to be able to run the ball. But if you can't make explosive gains in the running game, you're eventually going to end up throwing it. You can gain 4 yards and 5 yards and end up with 3rd and 1. And, if you don't have a way of converting the 3rd and 1, or if you don't have the ability to complete a 3rd down pass, the running game just isn't going to matter. So I thought against the Patriots, because the running game was working, they should have run it more. I'm just not sure in the modern NFL you can just say, we're going to run it no matter what.
Well, no, I don't think you do. But, the Patriots game was, to me, and should have been, I think, to everyone in the organization and fans, the most frustrating when it came to the running game, because it was there and they did get away from it too soon. I had really tired of the excuses of, game flow and we needed to get away from it because, those excuses work when you're down 17 points in the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter, but they don't work when you're in a close game and you just are refusing to hand it off. And,
right.
You've got to keep the defense off balance and guessing what's coming. And if they know that you are going to be throwing the ball, 65-70% of the time, and the Vikings had thrown the ball more than any other team on a percentage basis, it doesn't help Cousins. It doesn't help the offensive line. And DiFilippo was doing himself a disservice by getting away from it. Last night, Monday night, it was about the right amount, I thought, especially early in the game. They ended up with 21 carries. And what I thought was interesting was when we talked to DiFilippo on Friday, I believe it was, and he was asked about, Dalvin Cook hadn't had 20 carries in a game, and he'd had 16 in the season opener against San Francisco, and then he hadn't had more than 10 in any game. And he was asked about Cook not having 20 carries, and his answer was, well, 20 carries, that's a lot. Well, not if the running game is doing well, and that's a good formula to win. The number of times that Adrian Peterson had 20, 25 carries in a game, when it's going well, you stick with it and have balance in your offense. So, last night I was, much more encouraged by them trying to run the ball and having decent success with it. And I really did feel like Cook had a couple of opportunities where he was tripped up, and if he'd gotten away from that, it would have been an explosive gain. So sticking with it and trying to make it work is, something that I think has to happen as long as they can, be averaging 4 or 5 yards a carry. If you are getting stuffed behind the line of scrimmage, then you do get away from it. Maybe you can revisit it, with some screens and things like that.
Fixology Repair, fixologyrepair.com, third floor of the Mall of America by Nordstrom's, downtown Mall of America, just south of the Wells Fargo Center in the Skyway. Both incredibly convenient if you're in those areas. We walked by the Fixology shop yesterday. Because I'm an airhead, I forgot to bring my iPad. I will be bringing my iPad to get fixed at fixologyrepair.com, thanks to our friend John Hedges.
There are some things in life that you just can't live without. Now, whether it's a special piece of jewelry, a watch, or even your smartphone, you want it in working condition. At Fixology Repair, we are committed to restoring your pieces so that everything works or fits the way it ought to. Watch servicing, chain repair, and broken screen replacements are just a few of the services that we offer at Mall of America. Please visit us at fixologyrepair.com or at FixologyMN on Twitter to learn more. Mention this ad and get a 10% discount on our services.
Interesting that Zimmer's been hard on DiFilippo, hard on the running game, and yet the Vikings give up 212 yards rushing to a team last night that they knew was going to try to run the ball a lot, and Zimmer didn't seem too bothered.
Yeah, and the Seahawks, while they didn't put up a lot of points, they controlled the game for a good portion of it through their running game, and some of that was to be expected. They had the number one rushing offense coming in. Chris Carson has proven to be a very good running back who's consistently going to get you 4 to 7 yards. And to me, though, the biggest surprise was they ran it right at the strength of the Vikings defense at Linval Joseph. And I just didn't feel like there was enough push there that, the pile kept moving the Seahawks way instead of throwing it backwards. And, part of me wonders, is Linval starting to get worn down, or was Kendricks a little bit hesitant with his rib injury to really stick it in there? And to me, that some of that's understandable. The more frustrating part, I think, for the Vikings should be how many times their defensive ends lost contain. And, you saw it on the big Russell Wilson run of 40 yards, but there were several other times where they had outside runs that the defensive end was not flowing it back inside to where linebackers can get to the running back. And so I wonder if there was some frustration as the game wore on and the offense isn't pulling its weight and the defense is starting to get worn down, if guys were starting to try to make a play out of position instead of being what they had been, which is really sound, gap sound defensive linemen and linebackers in there. So, I get it after a game like that. I'm sure there was a ton of frustration on Zimmer's part with the offense. He said that the special teams were average, but he seemed relatively pleased with the defensive effort. And after giving up 212 yards on the ground, I'm a little bit surprised by that.
Me too, because it wasn't anything that should have fooled you other than the one penny, bounce back, cut back run. Right. It was all pretty predictable stuff. And I was a little disturbed by that myself. All right, 2 big segments left. We want to talk about the Vikings playoff outlook, and then we want to preview the Dolphins. And we will wrap up the show after those 2 segments. Let us thank our friend Tony Hoaglund, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number 1 in car insurance since World War II and number 1 in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
And Tony handles my insurance and Michael Russo's insurance that I've told you before. Let's get to the playoff outlook. The interesting thing here is they still have a fine chance of making the playoffs, but I sense the fan base isn't all that thrilled about the prospect of this team going on the road to play a good team in the playoffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, right now, the percentages say that the Vikings are going to end up with the number 6 seed, which also says that they would be ending up traveling to Chicago and playing them there, which, they haven't proven that they're able to handle good defenses, and they haven't proven that they're able to handle big games, and they haven't proven that they're able to win against good teams on the road. So what the fans' expectations are for the Vikings in the playoffs, I think, are legitimate and justified. Until the Vikings prove that they can do it, they need to do that before they really get the fans fully believing that this is a Super Bowl contender, as they were expected to be back in March, April, and May. So right now, the way things shake out, Vikings, if they win all 3 of their last games, hosting Miami, at Detroit, and hosting the Bears, they're in the playoffs. They've got that number 6 seed for sure. If they win 2 of the next 3, they still have a 75% or better chance. But if they end up only winning 1 of them, their percentages go down to about 11%. So, this is, and frankly, if they only win 1 of the next 3 games, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs. That's just as simple as I can say it. They haven't proven it this year that they are strong enough to be considered a worthy contender in the NFC. And until they do, if they win these next 3, then I go, yeah, okay, now things have changed a little bit. It's such a reactionary league and a week-to-week feeling with this league that if they do get things figured out on offense and there is some flow to it and the defense continues to play as it has, then I think we've got a team that at least can be competitive in the playoffs. So it's really on the offense to turn things around at this point.
No question. Let's preview the Dolphins game, which is made more interesting by the miracle play they beat the Patriots with last week. I don't think I want to see Kyle Rudolph playing defense this upcoming Sunday. We'll also want to give you a reminder. This is the most popular show on the program on the network. We also have another Vikings and NFL show. It's Jeff Diamond's Vikings and NFL Insider. Jeff is the former Vikings general manager, Titans president, and NFL Executive of the Year. So check out that show on this network as well. Jeff show is a perfect complement to what Tim provides. All right, what do you see in the Dolphins?
Well, first of all, here, going back to Jeff Diamond's show, you said last week that he was very disappointed, didn't agree with the move to fire Mike McCarthy in season. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see what he says about the DiFilippo firing, because I get it I think when you're closer to it, when you've been a part of NFL organizations and in the front office or the general manager, that you develop friendships, relationships with the people that you're working with. But I thought the Mike McCarthy move was one that I agreed with in season. They were going to do it at the end of the season anyway. And why not get some view of what Aaron Rodgers can do with different offensive thinking? And in this case, I kind of agree with the decision to fire DiFilippo, because to me, there were just too many faces on the sidelines that read frustration to me. And I don't know that was going to turn around if they kept DiFilippo here. And, so if you're going to give yourself the best chance to be competitive in the playoffs, I think a move was necessary. So I'm curious to see what Jeff's got to say about this in-season move from the Vikings.
Yep, we'll have that show out later this week, and and I will ask him specifically about that. So how much of the challenge are the Dolphins going to be?
Well, here's the thing: their rankings just aren't very good, but yet they've been just good enough to be competitive. They're 30th on offense and 26th on defense, and none of the main 6 categories, which are overall based on yardage, overall defense, run defense, pass defense, and the same for offense. None of those rankings are above 25 or above 20, I should say. Their run defense is 20th, but it's a hard one for me to gauge when I look at the Dolphins and try to figure out, why should a team be concerned about them? A team like the Vikings that that should have playoff aspirations on them. So